I'm Jasmine, the author and the owner of the book and the brand Divorce Limited. The purpose of Divorce Limited was to teach you how to reevaluate, repair, and rebuild your foundation both in and out of marriage. My hope was that the book would come and stabilize marriages all over. But being a wife myself, I understand that not every situation calls for reconciliation. Sometimes it's best to leave before it's too late. In recognition of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, today's episode is going to touch on what exactly too late looks like. Today we'll be hearing from survivors and families of victims of domestic violence.
He was the popular guy in the neighborhood. Everybody wanted him. And I guess the fact that I didn't want him made him even more attractive to me.
He proposed to me maybe like 2 days before my birthday or something like that. And I was tired of dating. I felt like this was the man God sent to me. So I told him yes.
One day she hit me up and told me about him finally. She had told me that she couldn't tell anybody because, she was his supervisor.
We dated for a little bit. We hung out for a little bit. I thought that we were friends.
This story would have been told a lot different many years ago. But I've had a lot of time to do work and healing and find forgiveness. So it's told a lot differently now.
Everything started off kind of rocky in the beginning. I want to say about 3 months in. He wanted a relationship. I didn't want a relationship. I wasn't ready to be in a relationship, but some way, somehow, I ended up in a relationship. So I was about 17, almost 18 when I had my son. So I was a teenage mom, clueless of what the world had in store for me. Fast forward into the relationship while I was pregnant. It was more of a control thing with us. I couldn't go out and hang out with my friends. I couldn't fuss about him cheating, having females knocking at the door. I even remember one time he got caught cheating and locked me in the house. He had a 2-way lock on his door and locked me in the house. I was about 5 months pregnant with my oldest son. And I couldn't get out. No way, shape, form, I couldn't get out. So when he originally came home, which he stayed out all night, by the way. He came home. I called 311 and said, car was driving through my neighborhood reckless. Almost hit children. And they towed the car. So when they towed the car, that was my escape. I felt like I can get away, finally. And he left to go deal with the situation with his car. And when he found out who reported this car, it's like, oh, hell broke loose.
Well, I met my boyfriend through friends. We were out one day and my cousin introduced us. So we met through friends and I just knew that everything was going to be wonderful. Everything was going good in the beginning and then boom, the hammer dropped.
Me and my ex-husband met in, I want to say maybe 2010. It's first when I started at the jail where we both were working. Actually, when we first met, I was walking down the hallway and I was late going to roll call. And I asked him, he was standing in front of, we have a badge system. So he was standing in front of the badge system. So I asked him politely, could he move? And he was like, blank stare and a stare straight, like he didn't hear me. So right then I should have been like, I don't know about this guy, but no. So I said, excuse me for the third time, and he didn't move. So I kind of pushed him out of the way, and he was like, the door is open. And I was like, ooh, he's kind of rude and nasty, but I was like, whatever. Went and fixed myself, got prepared for roll call. And then one day I was working in a particular place, and he happened to be there, and he was talking about to my coworker all the clubs and stuff that he went to in DC. And I was a single woman, so I'm like, ooh, I've never been to this club. Like, what is it about? Still in the back of my head, I'm remembering like when we had our first interaction. At this point, he was kind of nice and talking about, the clubs and stuff. So I kind of joined into the conversation, and he invited me out to one of the clubs. So I was like, okay, cool. So wound up going out to the club. It was like pouring raining, and he didn't show up. And I was like, hold on, who is this guy not to be showing up? Like, I think I miss all that and stuff like that. Like, he's standing me up, like, hold on. And so I texted him like, hey, I went to the club. And he was like, oh, yeah, it was raining. And I was like, okay. So then, still, he's trying to talk. I'm not really seeing it like that, but I'm figuring that he is, because he was very persistent and very consistent with his communication. His past relationship that he had was maybe like almost 20, 30 years ago. So I was maybe like the second relationship he's ever been in, which should have been another red flag, but it was just like, okay, he's older, he's, into himself, and he had a really nice condo and stuff like that. I'm like, he's just established and just waiting for the right one.
Tamisha and I met in high school, but we didn't really become like friends until after high school. I remember it was New Year's, 2008. I took her to work for like a couple of days, and that was like our first time just like kind of ever just hanging out, and we just kind of like ever been friends ever since then.
I am Tamisha Alleeo Robeson's mother. She graduated from Bowie State University December 2011 and became a social worker. She had got into a relationship with a guy, and it was domestic violence. And she got into another relationship with another guy, and it was domestic violence. But myself and my ex, we were able to get her out of both of those relationships.
There was one particular relationship she was in that was, she was abused. She actually ended up losing a baby. And I didn't know that was how until afterwards. She was very quiet about bad stuff, even with like her close friends. I never even knew until afterwards.
Then she met this other guy once my granddaughter was about 3 years old. And she thought she loved him, and she thought he loved her.
When I first noticed things were going wrong was he had got locked up. And she never told me why, but I remember I was talking to my mom about it, and my mom looked it up. She was like, everything's on case search. And so we looked up why he was locked up, and my mind was just like, what? And then when I found out that he had like a weapon in the home, and the police had came and the kids were there, so they ended up taking him away and calling CPS, and I was just like, what? Why didn't you tell me this? I get why she didn't tell me, but even us hanging out that whole time that he was there, because we had, kind of broken apart while their relationship was kind of progressing. So when he was locked up, we did spend a lot of time together, and she was telling me he, had issues with his mom, and he had problems with respecting women as a result of the issues that he had with his mom. And I'm like, what is it? why are you staying? She's like, I just want a family.
She had a son with him. And Lord, I thought that was the biggest mistake, but that's all she wanted was her son and this relationship that she thought was love.
I mean, I even tried to prevent it from the beginning. She had said just when the whole situation with like the being, his subordinate, and I was just like, this is weird. Why would you want to risk your job, for him? 'Cause she already had a kid. So I was just like, I just thought the whole thing was just like weird. And then we were like both pregnant around the same time. And we started talking like about that, and she was asking me about my kid's father. So that's when I was like, okay, the door's open. Let me ask her about hers. And I actually ended up getting a little bit more information. And I kind of just was like, why are you with him? She's like, you grew up and had this amazing role model as a dad, so you know how you want to be treated. She's like, I didn't have that, so I'm just finding whatever love is coming to me. And I was just like, it's not worth it. Like, you're legit, like, not happy, Like, I just don't get it. And she was like, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, it's gonna be good. And I'm just like, okay.
My mother had been in recovery many years. So my mom had about 17, 18 years clean at the time, and she had worked her way literally from nothing to everything. She started off in the kitchen at a hospital, and she worked her way up to nursing director, and at this point she had been hired to run a treatment facility. So she was a director, and she was doing very well in life. The man that she was with now had only 5 years clean, and it's my opinion that he should have been focusing more on his recovery and really not in this relationship, but that's the way it is. They travel in groups, they have clean, sober friends, and they fell in love, so that's who she was choosing to be with. And I'll never forget when I met him. My mother was on the balcony in our condo, and I was sitting in my living room with my aunt, and I was doing her hair. And he walks into the house, and he doesn't speak to us. And he walks across the living room, and he has such presence. He was a very handsome man, but for him not to speak was very odd. And I remember this feeling coming over me, like just washed over me, of just this energy that I didn't like. But I ignored it. My mom's very happy. They're going to shows, they're going out, she's having a great time, everything's seemingly going well. Getting to know him, I thought he was very funny. I could see why she liked him. Everything is going good.
We started dating, and he was very attentive, very sweet, always would get me roses out of the best bouquet of roses, always take me to the most expensive dinners and stuff like that. Like, he truly was like a gentleman. He wined and dined me, always opened my car door. I never had to drive anywhere. All of those types of things. Like, he would legitly spoil me. So I was just enjoying the moment, going out, being wined and dined, treated very well. And all of a sudden, like, one day, I remember we had gotten into like a argument. I don't really recall what it was about. I think he worked overtime, and he was tired. And I was on the phone laughing with my friends. It was maybe like 12 o'clock at night, give it. He got off at 11, got home at 11:45. So it was like 12 o'clock at night. I'm having a conversation and laughing and joking with my friends. And I guess I was too loud. So all of a sudden, he like opens up the door. He was like, "You're too loud," like yells at me. And I'm like, I'm on the phone with my friends. Like, what are you talking about? So I go downstairs and I'm like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm on the phone with my friends. We're having a good time. Like, I didn't think I was that loud. All of a sudden, he pushes me. So my reaction is to push him back. At this point, we're just dating, and we got into an all-out like fist fight. Like, I mean, it was terrible. Like, we were fighting like we were in a boxing ring. This was our first incident that we had. And I thought it was, isolated to that one incident. So of course I forgave him. He wined and dined me, brought me this and that, said he was sorry. So I continued on. So we were continuing, to date, and I want to say it was around my birthday in August, and we were dating for maybe it was a year. It might have not even have been a year, but things were so, I was so caught up in the gifts and the whining and dining, and everything looked so good. So he proposed to me maybe 2 days before my birthday or something like that. And I was tired of dating. I felt like this was a man God sent to me. So I told him yes. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. This ring is huge,
We literally had a beautiful day. Went to go take family photos. He spent that entire day with me and his son. And I can say that I was happy at that moment. I had him all to myself. I didn't have to share him with anyone. It was just a family day, which was ruined hours later from one of his female friends that he chose to cheat with come knocking at the door. So she come knocking at the door. First she called, then she came knock at the door because she didn't like the fact that she was hung up on, which wasn't by me, it was by him. And me and her ended up fighting, which led to me being arrested on the box that go around your ankle for over a month. So that means I missed out with work because I was strictly on probation. I couldn't leave my door. Another situation with him. So that led to me being in the house confined to him. Being able to go out, live his life, do what he chose to do. It didn't matter who or what was involved, he was doing it.
The first thing I can remember is we were having drinks with his family. I decided I was tired. I wanted to go to bed, so I took a shower. He helped me with that. I had a few too many drinks, actually. He helped me with that. I went into the bedroom, and I remember waking up with everybody standing over top of us. From what I understood, he choked me until I blacked out. Don't know why. Don't know what happened. He was very apologetic. That was our pattern. In the beginning, he would do little things, and then they escalated to major things. I do remember going to work one day. A young man spoke to me. That was the wrong thing for him to do. My boyfriend followed me into my job. I opened the door. He came in behind me. He reached over the counter, punched me in the mouth. I had to leave. Busted lip. Blood was everywhere. 2 customers were in the store. I had to close it back down and I had to leave. So that was one totally embarrassing situation. Needless to say, I lost that job. I didn't have my own apartment at the time, so I was living with his family. So he had a lot of control. I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't speak to anybody of the opposite sex. Everyone I talked to, I was dating or sleeping with, or they just weren't my friends. We just had a rough time. So I worked, took care of my kids, had more kids. We had 2 daughters together. I had already had 3 other children. So at the time I'm thinking who's gonna want somebody to, with 3 children already?
I don't want to be a single mother again, so I'm contemplating that. So all of these, I don't want to let my family down. So all of these things are going through my mind, I need to go through with this.
Instead of leaving, I chose to stay because I didn't want to be a statistic. I didn't want to be a young mom without a father involved. So I settled.
With the knowledge that you have of women who go through these things, they're not going to go until they're ready. I mean, she had left plenty of times, but then a couple hours, a day or two later, she always went back.
And the excuses, her making excuses for the behavior when people close to you are saying they see things, or, this isn't right, or he didn't used to act this way, and you make excuses. And you feel like you need to hide stuff from people who love you.
It's just like I just wanted to just try to make this facade seem like it was just a happy place. And from the outside looking in, everybody was like, oh, they got the house, they got the cars, they got the kids, we had brought a dog.
And I hid all of this from my family. So I started to distance myself from them. Wasn't going to work, wasn't going to church.
Even in, her most recent relationship, she kept a lot. It was a lot I didn't find out until afterwards, or from other people. She was really good at keeping that quiet.
My mother's husband clearly to me was using again. And I was saying to her, Mom, I know what it looks like. I think he's using. And she was making excuses for him. No, I don't think so. No, I haven't been cooking for him.
And just for me to have to go to work every single day and smile like everything was okay. Helping people who had problems in their own marriage, not knowing that I had problems in mine. But that's the type of person that I was, helping them out, and I'm had my own problems going on.
Encourage my mom to buy a home, far down in the country, away from everybody. And I know that's a pattern of abuse, is isolating from both of their families, and things were happening down there, and she didn't really have anybody that she could run to quickly.
I was estranged from my family. I didn't talk to anybody. I stayed working and taking care of the kids.
I mean, he isolated her. He completely isolated her. I mean, all of her friends would say the same thing, that they didn't really see her unless it was a situation where she was running from him. And she came to them and then eventually went back. But a lot of people only seen her if it was a situation where she just needed a place to go for a couple of hours.
My daughter lost herself. He was so controlling. He had to take her to work. He had to pick her up from work. He had to take her everywhere she went, even the grocery store. She could not call me and talk to me like she was. And my daughter and I, we used to talk every day. This hurt me so bad.
I was so sad. I knew I didn't want to do it. My best friend, he flew down there with my mom and them, and he knew. He would just look at me and he could see, he was like, don't do it. And I was like, but I feel like I have to. I'm in a position where I have to at this point. I don't want to be a single mom. I don't want to let my family down. So time moves on, and, everything seems like it's on the up and up. You had the baby, his family was happy. My family was happy. Everything was going good. He was still whining and dining me, getting me any and everything I want. But financially in our household, things were not where they were supposed to be. And I felt like it was some type of spiritual warfare going on that I had nothing, I knew nothing about. I noticed that his attitude was kind of changing. I don't know. It was changing again for the worse. His mood was just going completely down. And I just wanted to distance myself from him. I don't know what was going on with him, but I kind of wanted to distance myself. I just felt like something wasn't right. So I was going to get a routine oil change, and the guy had my car up on the jack. And he was like, ma'am, he was like, are you aware that there's a tracking device on your car? I said, a what? He said, a tracking device. At the time, I'm on the phone with my ex-husband. And I don't know if he heard him or not, but I immediately hung up the phone. I'm like, a tracking device? He was like, yeah, let me show you. So I get out the car. He pulls off this box off of my car, and there is a tracking device on my car. At this point, I'm like, what am I dealing with? My spidey senses start going off. I'm like, if he has a tracking device on my car, I'm thinking there must be something else somewhere that I don't know about, you know. So now I'm going home and I'm like looking up like spyware and stuff like that on the internet. So while I was snooping, I found a pen. And this pen, it looks out of the ordinary. I mean, it looked like a normal pen, but something was like, this is not just a regular pen. So I happened to take a picture of it and look it up on the internet, and it was a spy device, a recording pen that you don't even have to press the button. It just will start recording whatever you want, you know, as long as it heard somebody speaking. So at this point, I was like, I just knew in the back of my mind, like, it's something going on that is just, it's beyond me.
I was too afraid to move, too afraid to go anywhere, too afraid to do anything. So my mom was at her wit's end. We didn't talk. We didn't communicate. We didn't do anything. One day I went to the dentist, got a couple teeth pulled, wasn't going to go to work the next day because I wasn't feeling well. So I called out. He came into the room and he said, basically, you're going to get up and you're going to go to work. I don't care what's wrong with you. I'm throwing up, couldn't move. You're going to get up, you're going to go to work. So I said, okay, you know what? I am going to get up and I am going to go to work. So I ended up going to work, called my mom from work, and I said, Mom, I can't do this anymore. I said enough is enough. And then I packed my kids up and I found a new apartment and wouldn't let them come around. I tried the restraining order thing, that didn't work. So my children and I decided to move.
And she tried to get him to go into treatment and he wouldn't. So she had to put him out for her own safety.
So at that point in time when I had enough, I chose to walk away. Which was literally a life and death situation.
Like, I'm done. You know, I started getting help in therapy. I started going to a therapist just to get myself together. At the time, he was, you know, in this whole state of mind. I told him, I said, you need to go to therapy. I said, just you need to talk to somebody, get whatever you're feeling out. I said, because I can't help you. Like, you know, I'm going to help myself at this point. He thought I was getting help to bring us closer together. I was getting help to stabilize myself to be okay when we would part. And it just didn't register in his head about that.
And of course, we had kids together at that time, so I felt bad that they couldn't see their dad. So, needless to say, no matter where I lived, he would come around and he would try to run my life. Every little thing was an issue. If my daughter had the wrong color on, I would get a hit. If she was talking to the wrong friends, I would get a hit. I remember one of her friend's dogs bit her, and it was my fault the dog bit her. So of course I got a beating for that, you know. It was just always something. So one day I decided, Devon, you're gonna try to do something. I literally put boric acid in his drink. So I said, Devon, you can't do that to yourself or the kids. You wouldn't have been around and you would have been in jail. The kids wouldn't have had Mom.
So I left. While he was out doing whatever he was doing, I left. So as I was in the process of grabbing my items, me and my cousin go back down to the house to get the last little bit of stuff. And I seen his car. When we walked through the door, I told her to stay outside. Do me a favor to stay outside. Of course, she wasn't trying to hear any of that. But I forced her to stay outside. I gets in the house. And all this is still going on. My son not even 1 yet. He had to be like 6 or 7 months. I walked through the door and he said, oh, so you're leaving me? I didn't say anything. anything because I didn't want to trigger anything. I just go upstairs to get some items. He followed me upstairs, pushing me, pulling my hair. Wouldn't even fight back. I walks down the steps. He hawk spit at me. I still didn't react. In my mind, if I react, it's going to end up worse. And one of us is not going to make it out this house. That didn't stop him. He took a boombox and threw it down the steps and in my back with it. I still didn't fight back. I continued to leave. So I thought, and he grabbed me by my hair and beat the life out of me. I was hit with liquor bottles. And the last strike, all I can see was my son. In the picture, and I cried. And I finally fought back. I hit him with a iron that he was ironing his clothes with. And I wouldn't stop.
Once he got out of jail, I think he was only locked up for maybe just a couple of months. Once he got out, I've never seen her again after that. She came to my baby shower, which was in July. I'd never seen her again after that. Physically, in person, I'd never seen her again since when I had my baby shower in July of 2019.
And on January 30th, 2021, he took my daughter's life. He shot my daughter in the back of the head.
I was away from my phone. I picked it up and I had Facebook phone calls, messages, people hey, call, random people just randomly I haven't even spoken to since high school, hey, call me. I had some missed calls. I'm what the hell is going on? These people don't call me. I don't even know you people. So I called one person back and she's did you hear it? I'm hear what? So she told me and I'm yeah, I heard, but I didn't believe it. And then I was sitting, I just locked eyes with my mom and I just started crying. I was what? This is crazy. And it just sent me into a whirlwind of just emotion. I didn't know what to think.
Her husband calls me and he's rambling something on the phone. And long story short, it ended in, if I can't have her, no one will. That was said to me. Fast forward to Wednesday, September 2nd, 2009. I get a phone call from a friend who was with the Annapolis City Police. And they say
led police on a high-speed chase throughout D.C. He was shot and killed by officers and apparently was pulling a gun on police. Blandford had recently lost his towing business and was going through financial
Tiff, something's happened with your mom, I'm quite sure. The police are looking for her husband and you need to try to contact her. So I'm calling her phone, and I get no answer. When I showed up to her house, it was already taped off. Police were everywhere. I was being questioned. And he had broken into the home at 6:30-ish in the morning and shot and killed my aunt and my mother.
Police say that he shot and killed his estranged wife and her sister. Court records show that on August 27th, Sheena Blandford was granted a restraining order. Her husband was supposed to stay away from her and surrender any firearms that he owned.
So he tried to go to a therapist. For my sake, it didn't work. He tried to get baptized. He saw I was into God. He tried to get baptized. For my sake, it just didn't work because it just wasn't right. It's you could try to do what you're doing, but it doesn't feel right and it's not right. So here I am sleeping in the basement, just trying to get myself together. And he's still trying to be nice and still trying to shower me with all these gifts and stuff like that. And I just was done. You know, I was just done. Mentally, emotionally, physically, I was just done with him. I knew where I was going, which was headed to divorce. And that just, you know, I was willing to co-parent and stay in the house because I wanted him to be able to pay up some of his bills and stuff like that. And that was my main reason for staying in the home. So, went to work the night of the 22nd into the 23rd. He called me, you know, being really nice, having a conversation. We're going to separate, you know, we're going to co-parent. I'm going to get a condo in Alexandria. You know, it was all of this nice conversation. So I didn't think anything of it. I'm thinking, okay, once I get off, you know, it is what it is. So I get home and my oldest daughter, she's crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, Daddy's not being nice, you know, X, Y, and Z. So I'm like, you know, don't pay it attention. Give him the Chick-fil-A. I was so tired this night after I got off. So he tried to give me a sleeping pill, which is not uncommon because sometimes I take sleeping pills when I'm really, really tired. But when I wanted to go and get the sleeping pill from upstairs, he was like, no, wait, I'll get it for you. So I was like, okay. He's being really nice, you know. So I'm like, okay. He gave me the sleeping pills. I go downstairs. I get on the phone, have a conversation with somebody, whatever. I don't know if he heard the conversation, whatever the case may be, and I go to sleep.
Residents here in Bryan's Crossing say this is a very friendly neighborhood, and they say Rodriguez and his family fit right into that. So they say they are absolutely stunned by what he is accused of doing inside that
I just feel something like just hitting me in my back. I'm like, what is going on? Choking me. You know, I don't know what's going on. I'm halfway asleep. You know, and it comes to find out he's stabbing me with a 5-inch hunting knife that has a hook on it. I'm like, I'm totally shocked. I would have never expected this from him, you know. I'm just like, what is going on?
Stabbing her more than 20 times over a period of several hours. Tom Rousey went to this quiet neighborhood in Charles County where police say it all played out.
It's like, who are you right now? Like, this is not the person that I knew, that I married. This wasn't the person. So he's attacking me like, you know, furiously, just stabbing me all over the place and things like that. I'm trying to fight him. Then he hits me with a gumball machine, like the old school gumball machine, over top of my head. But at this point, it's like blood is everywhere. I'm looking at my arm. It's like just pouring out blood because he stabbed me. It's like maybe like a 6-inch like open stab wound on my arm that's just pouring out blood. So I use my training from work. So I take my shirt off and I tie that on my arm to make sure that I don't bleed out, not knowing that I've been stabbed 23 times all over my body. You know, my head, my back, my lung. I just knew that as I'm breathing, my lung is like hissing, like a hissing sound. Later on, I would find out that my lung was collapsed. So it's like, so as I'm fighting him, he takes me, he drags me by my hair, and he chains me to the banister of the steps downstairs, so I couldn't go anywhere.
He's accused of shackling his wife and then stabbing her more than 20
his wife
times
while she slept, putting her ankles in shackles and handcuffing her to a stairwell.
At this point, I'm helpless. You know, he has me handcuffed and shackled on my feet to the banister. I can't do anything, like nothing. So at this point, it's like I'm at his mercy. So I just keep talking to him and calling his name. It's like I called his name maybe 3 times. On the 3rd time, he screamed so loud, I will never forget. It was like a shriek. Like it just, like something was just coming out of him. I don't know what it was. And then all of a sudden it was like, snap. He just started being so nice to me. Like I was like cold and I was thirsty because I was losing all of this blood. I was like, I'm cold. So he went and he got the heater. He brought me a blanket, and it's like, what is going on at this point? I'm bleeding out on my step in my basement. I'm stabbed 23 times, and now you're being nice to me. I'm thirsty. He brings me water. It's like, I need you to call the ambulance. Like, if you don't, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm about to die down here. And it was just like, okay, I'm calling the ambulance now. And that's when he decided to call the police on himself.
When he finally did, this is how he described what happened to the dispatcher.
Domestic with me and my wife. She's stabbed up, and I'm stabbed up.
Where are you stabbed at?
I'm in the hands, and she's all over.
Rodriguez calmly says that the couple's children are in school, that his wife is stabbed in the back and neck, that he used a 5-inch hunting knife, and then twice he refuses the dispatcher's requests to perform first aid. Listen.
Can you help your wife? Can you do anything to stop the bleeding? Are you in a position that you can do that?
No.
Can you get a clean towel and put some pressure on her wounds?
She has some towels down there. I'm upstairs, she downstairs.
Police and medics soon arrive and find his wife in the basement of the home. She's flown to a hospital and has now, 10 days later, been released and is on the road to recovery. Her husband charged.
So had he have not done that, and had he have not snapped back, I wouldn't be here to tell this story today, because there was absolutely no blood in my body. They had to give me 3 blood transfusions. My lung was collapsed. My head was so swollen. It's no way that I would have been able to survive this attack without him actually having the decency, after he attacked me and stabbed me 23 times, to call the police. And it's like all of the red flags, I didn't pay attention to them. I mean, everything was looking up. Everything was looking like, oh, they just have it all going on. But the whole time, everything was shattered apart.
So the really hard part is, the weekend before this, my children were there. So I'm just grateful to God that it wasn't then. But then you're left with having to pick up all the pieces. And then I learned from the media that she had a restraining order and she tried to get help and she tried to get him help.
And I fought for my life. I fought for my son's life at that very moment. And that's when I said I had enough. It's either you want to kill me or I'm going to kill you. And one way or another, my child is losing out. And I laughed. And that was the best decision that I made at that very moment. It was the hardest because I was weak for him. I let him control me. I let him dictate my entire life just so I can say I had someone, or that this was some type of love, his love language for me. And it was a nightmare just to think of. It was a nightmare. I was young. I was like, yes, he's mine. He's the cutest thing walking around here. He gave me money whenever I wanted it, but it was not worth my life. He took me through. He definitely had. But I can say now that that was a lesson that I learned at a young age. And I fought for my life.
And one day I just said, you know what, Devon, you have got to do something because somebody's going to die. When he called, I didn't answer. When he came around, I didn't answer. And then he stopped coming for a while. So when we did end up meeting up again, it was because I said, we do have children still. I have to forgive him in order to move on with my own life. So that's what I did. I forgave him. He came around for the kids and he just literally never tried to touch me again. So I don't know if that was he grew up or whatever it was, but I just know that for me, it was the grace of God that did it, so.
And I never relied on God as much as I did in that time. So I was a month married, newly married, and having to deal with process all this with my husband. And I literally checked out for 2 years. The first 2 years of my marriage, I really don't even remember how I functioned or anything. My husband took care of my kids. My mother's friends, they checked on me.
I missed out on job opportunities because I will go to an interview with a swollen face. Black guys covering it up with makeup, which I had no clue of how to cover up. Lying to my mother about why I didn't come visit.
I was not there to save my baby. I was not there to say I love you. I was not there when she took her last breath. This is the hardest thing any mother could ever go through.
You know, because as a result of this, me and her mom have gotten closer. We've always, you know, had a relationship, but we've gotten closer, and I just see the heartbreak in her only daughter, her oldest child, you know, it's tough.
So if you could say something to your kids right now, what would you say?
What I would say to my kids would be, I apologize for allowing someone to come in and put us through what they put us through.
I'm really making a point to tell my daughter and my son, really, even Mason yesterday, you know, I was teaching him about being respectful of women, even if they don't respect themselves. And how, you know, never, even with his sister, you never put your hand on a woman, ever. I don't care what you have to do, if you have to walk out. And he's only 11, but I've just always been telling him that.
Any type of toxic from anyone, family, friend, relationship, I kill right away. I don't want them to experience any type of toxic relationship from a soul just because you're related to them or because someone didn't love you.
It's like, I don't want my daughter to be with a man like that, and I don't want my son to be a man like that. So it definitely kind of makes you want to, like, not sugarcoat anything. You know, I've always been super honest with my kids, and, you know, my daughter knew Tamisha, my daughter knew her daughter, you know, so as me and my mom were having that moment, my daughter was there too, and she had that moment too, because, you know, she's 10, so she knows exactly what happened. So, you know, I just tell her, like, look, she was with a man who hit her and abused her and ultimately killed her, you know, and that's not something you should ever want to accept.
I just try to teach them. I don't really talk on the subject of what I went through because they're so young. But as they get older, you know, I'll sit them down and I'll talk to them and tell them actually what mommy went through. But yeah, after March 23rd, that really changed my life. It changed my children's life. It changed my family's life. It changed the way I date.
It was because of my son that I fought as hard as I did and that I'm here. He saved me from not being here to be able to protect and love him the way that he deserved to be loved.
When I first married my husband, I was getting out of a pretty mentally abusive relationship. So the way that I would argue with him, he would say to me, that's not for us. We're not going to do that. So just having the one person to say, that's not how we're going to operate, you know, it set the tone for my whole relationship.
How are you reacting to these things? Because it's important to me, because it sends up red flags. Like, if you get angry and you're moving stuff around and punching stuff and stuff like that, like, that's a red flag for me.
All I did was have friends, but not boyfriends. And that was it. For a long, long time. Very long time.
Do you feel healed? I do. I do. It's like, you know, I think that when I finally got my divorce decree, when it was finalized, I think that just lifted a big burden off of me. It was always like I felt like I was like still attached to my ex-husband. I always write in my spiritual journal from time to time. I talk to God and stuff like that. Sometimes I talk to my new partner. He's very understanding, very comforting, and things like that. But yeah, and I'm always open to talk about my situation because I always want to help somebody if I can, even if it's one person. I'm very open with talking about my situation. So I feel like with that, all of that being said, that I'm healed. I'm not completely healed, of course, because I look at my scars. I'll always see and remember what happened, but I feel like I'm comfortable enough to talk about what happened and comfortable enough to accept what happened and just move forward from it.
So if anyone is going through anything, Jesus is my answer, and I really don't have any other advice other than that. He helped me to forgive him, and it took a long time, but I'm truly not angry about it anymore. I really feel bad for his family and that he didn't get the help that he needed. And it's such a loss of, 3 lives that I had promised.
But because of this particular situation, I'm strong. I definitely have tough skin because of it. Definitely.
Everybody has to say, follow your intuition, look at the red flags, and if you can get out, get out. Look at different ways. There's the black dots you can put in your hand if you're being abused and you don't want your abuser to know. You go to the doctor, they'll see that and stuff like that. So just follow your intuition.
Never turn them away. I don't care how much they leave and how much they come back. Never turn them away. Because what they're going through is pure hell. And they may just need a day break or 2-day break. Yes, they're going to go back. But never turn them away.
If you could say one thing to your mom right now, what would it be?
Thank you for everything you've taught me. Verbally or by example. And I forgive you for what you didn't know.
All I'm asking is for anyone that's in this type of relationship, think about the people that you're leaving behind. How will they feel? Because I hurt, and now my grandkids have to be raised without their mother who loved them. And I know how my granddaughter feels because I lost my mother at the age of 5. I hurt. Please don't let nobody hurt because you're no longer here. Because it's the worst feeling anybody could ever go through. I love you, Mish. You will always be in my heart. You will always be in these kids' heart. You will always be in your brother's heart. We love and miss you so much. And I'm going to always, always take care of these babies. I love you, baby. And I miss you. Mama love you forever.
If you could describe yourself in 3 words, what would they be?
I will say I'm a nurturer, protector, and determined.
stronger, humble, and maybe a little crazy.
Describe Kia in 3 words.
I would say strong. I would say loyal. I would say, I guess it's not one word, but just a beautiful spirit. I don't know. That's just what I feel like I have now. So I guess, that might be like 5, but.
These tears that I cry at night ain't worth it. This circle around my eye ain't worth it. These bruises that I feel in the morning time ain't worth it. But I'm worth it. And his love is all I need. And his love, it never hurts me. And his love, love's unconditionally. So I don't need you to love me.
In recognition of October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month,
See something.
Say something.
Do something. The purpose of Divorce Limited was to show you how to reevaluate, repair, and rebuild your foundation both in and out of marriages. Not every situation calls for reconciliation, and sometimes it's best to leave before it's too late.
Love is a lot of things,
But love doesn't hurt.
Thanks for watching.
And we're getting a picture on the TV. You had a good picture, huh?